You think a spawn could squat a fire truck? I mean, look at those quads, dude. These guys are yoked. Anyway, let's talk about Chaos Spawn. Recently talked about Treekin. I'm going to be kind of diving into some more monstrous infantry, or at least trying to, over the next little while. And yeah, as you can see from the weapon strength here, Chaos Spawn are just absolute damage dealers. 160 weapon strength is great. Their stats aren't amazing. Low armor, relatively squishy. They are unbreakable though, which is also fantastic. Absolutely awesome. And yeah, with the Warriors of Chaos here, you've got this awesome Regiment of Renown. We will take a look at a Beastmen battle after this, just to kind of show off the Beastmen. Chaos Spawn do actually have some key differences. But yeah, the Weird Spawn armor sundering definitely helps. That 160 weapon strength. Primary non-armor piercing, if we kind of look at the breakdown here, 42 AP, pretty good, 118 base weapon damage. So they can just straight up one-shot models, and they do have some pretty good splash attacks against elves, who I've mentioned several times are squishy. That high weapon damage definitely comes in handy. I'm up against a Samurai Warrior. This is from the kind of series of games. It wasn't like a formal series or anything, just kind of, you know, an afternoon of games. Yeah, these unfortunate Corsairs going to get Plague of Rusted here. I guess I'll go over the builds real quick. A couple of Feral Manticores, Hounds. We've got the 4 spawn, including the Weird Spawn, bunch of Marauders, and Big Bird. Currently running some Harass, so just some quick tactics as well. I kind of wheeled my formation up and around these 2 rocks, and I'm going to kind of advance up and around it just because I've got a mobility advantage. Like, my units generally are faster. Samurai Warrior didn't bring any cav at all, and is, you know, not really any mobility, right? It's a full-on infantry build. He's got a couple of Dark Shards here, Witch Elves, 2 Sisters of Slaughter, a front line of Bleak Swords, Blades of the Blood Queen, definitely very strong in these Corsairs, who are currently getting absolutely raided. Hype for Game 3, by the way, guys. I'm recording this on the day they released the teaser for what I think is Game 3. I mean, I guess there's a chance I'm wrong and it's some kind of DLC, but the teaser, you know, like the video is much more than what they've done in the past for DLCs, and this is kind of a little bit of a tangent. We'll get back to the spawn in just a minute, but as we watch Big Birds all over these elves, we'll quickly discuss that. Yeah, it's more, I mean, in the past they've done only ever pictures, right, like a little, you know, signed letter about some new threat, and then that's kind of the teaser, right? Marauders charging in now. We're going to get a big old pitch melee engagement. Nice Penumbral Pendulum to get some damage on them. I've got the Manticore as well. I think that is a Soul Stealer also. Which is, no, Final Transmutation from me, that's right. I just kind of saw a blob of high-value units. The Low-Kier Fellheart's also in here, so it does get some damage on him. Pretty good stuff. Yeah, just a big bunker bust right there. And the spawns start to move in. Anyway, yeah, that's just, because it's more, I'll kind of finish up my thought. It's just more, you know, than what they've done in the past for DLCs, which is what leads me to believe it's Game 3. But, man, in 4K, this game looks just absolutely amazing, I have to say. Chaos Spawn are going to do a lot of damage here in this fight against these infantry. Unfortunately, there's no Fear Spears here. It's all Sad Swords. I just called them Bleak Swords earlier. I know some of you guys are going to be happy about that. Low-Kier's in the center, though. He's dueling this Manticore. I mean, it would have enraged anyway, but the Witch Elves are making it extra angry. And a little bit of fire from the Corsairs there. 1 Manticore's down. Some of my spawn are also taking pretty significant damage. I mean, Blades of the Blood Queen are no pushovers, and the Sisters of Slaughter definitely fought back. Their defense is good. Their armor is just terrible, though. Repeated cycle charging by these guys, combined with kind of the rust effects, has been pretty good stuff so far. Big Bird himself taking some pretty decent damage, but looks like we've got a Plague of Rust on the Blades of the Blood Queen. They're down to only 40 armor, so that's kind of the idea here with the spawn, is that with the rust effects, the high weapon damage just gets accentuated, right, against certain targets. And Dark Elves are one of those factions that kind of have a mix of high and low armor units, typically more on the lower end of armor with a few key, you know, kind of high-value, high-armor units, be that Knights or Blades of the Blood Queen, maybe Malekith, a handful of others. I think Low-Kier himself also pretty good armor. Yeah, 110 armor is great on foot. So you just kind of bring those rust effects to target those specific units. Weird Spawn also, their armor sundering are nice to kind of stick on a high-value unit. And here they're going to go after, I believe, the Blades of Blood Queen. It's a little bit hard to tell what's going on. This battle is chaotic in every way, and just hype. I know in the video I made today, I said that the clue I thought was in regards to Khorne. Just, you know, I kind of asked Lore Master of Sotek, like, hey, what's this about this, you know, Grugny's balls or whatever? Baldric? Like, what is this? He sent me the link to the wiki article, and immediately when I was reading it, that was my first thought. It's like, oh, this is Khorne. Like, this is just, you know, like, good guy Khorne, basically. Like, basically, if you take this line of thought to its extreme, then that's how you get Khorne. So, anyway, the spawn are definitely, this in general, I would say, is a little bit more of a Tzeentch theme. I mean, spawn, I guess, can come from any Chaos God, but for me, the way the Warriors of Chaos are right now, the Spawn and Big Bird and the Manticores, for me, this is kind of like a fun little Tzeentch-themed build. I'm so hyped, though. Game 3, if, you know, the full-on demons. Again, nothing confirmed yet, but if that's what this is, man, I definitely did not expect anything this soon. I thought we would maybe hear something about it in the summer for, like, a fall release date, but I don't know. No idea when the release date will be. But in terms of this battle here, Samurai Warriors Infantry Force, I mean, did some damage in the process. I lost 2 Spawn. Manticores are basically gone. Big Bird is also going to die here to the Khainite Assassin. But the Spawn are not completely gone. We've still got this one unit that's relatively healthy, plus the weird Spawn for their armor sundering, so they can, yeah, just beat up whatever else is left. Lokir is going to come back. He could regenerate some value, HP in melee. Big Bird gets killed by the Khainite Assassin there. Poor Big Bird. Lonely Chaos Demon has been missing his friends for all these years. Leave him aside there. Khainite Assassin now gonna get beat up by Manticore. We'll see with Lokir. Maybe be able to beat the Manticore in this lone Spawn, the last of his particular unit. Oof. Is no more. Is he? Oh no, he's getting back up. He's still got it. Sorceress doesn't want any part of this, so she's going to kind of pull back there. Get some Witch Elves, you know, make sure they have the leadership buff enough to come back to the fight, potentially. Blades of the Blood Queen also on their way back. We've got a handful of Sisters of Slaughter as well. I've still got some Hounds kind of out in the periphery, though, and the Horsemen, too, can come in, just chase things down in the late game. But Enfeebling Foe on the regular Chaos Spawn. Weird Spawn are also in here, getting that armor sundering. Actually, not even getting any armor sundering hits on Lokir himself, at least at the moment. Witch Elves run in, they're going to proc a quick enrage, and also the melee defense debuff, which a lot of people do forget. That Madness of Cain has something like a percentage-based, yeah, 10% melee defense, which is actually really nice. It scales well against high defense units, which Chaos Spawn are not, but it's something. Every little bit helps. Will it actually help, though, when the Marauders get here? Hard to say. Then the Spawn can start to focus on their targets, and yeah, Lokir even still not getting armor sundered, but getting chopped by some Marauders here. He's kind of back-to-back with the, ooh, Khainite Assassin, who's getting just wrecked, and yeah, that's it. Well played to Samurai Warrior. It was an interesting one for sure. The Spawn, I feel, are just kind of an underrated pick for Warriors of Chaos, honestly. You see them a lot more frequently for the Beastmen, especially because Morgr can summon them, obviously. But for Warriors of Chaos against the Elves, I would say it can be a decent pick. Just the high damage. They also can take a lot of damage, though, so they are a little bit of a risky play. Your opponent has the right units. They can shut them down, which is one of the reasons why I was so aggressive in the early game going after these handbows, because I could see in Samurai Warrior's army, like, okay, the handbows are definitely going to be the greatest threat to the Chaos Spawn out of what he brought, so if I can take them out, kind of neutralize them early in the battlefield, then the Spawn can come in and just kind of clean house here. And yeah, definitely some great value. One of them got wrecked, the other one a little bit short of where you would want it, but the weird Spawn definitely pay for themselves, as do this other one. Manticore is actually, one of them getting managed quite well, the other one getting just enough value. Also the Terror, of course, is hard to quantify. Big Bird himself, likewise, the Terror on him is very good, and his mobility and unbreakability also very valuable. Took one for the team, but, you know, was there to take it, right? The Marauders also generate really nice value kind of into this trade here, as did the Marauder Horsemen. Excellent stuff there. The Hounds also getting some nice chasing, routing units, generating value. So for me, the build kind of worked out pretty well here. And for Samurai Warrior, obviously, lack of anti-large was a little bit of a problem here. But definitely a fun one to try out. I know this build is experimental for sure, I would say. But yeah, gave me a little bit of an opportunity to talk about the Tentacly boys. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to the replay with the Beastmen now. Now for the ones with cow faces, because yeah, the Beastmen spawn do have some interesting kind of unique models. Good stuff. Morgar here leading them, of course, with 2 more on tap with his summons. So the main difference is that Chaos spawn for Beastmen have lower weapon strength, but also get poison attacks, which is fantastic. I mean, poison's always nice, especially on an unbreakable monstrous infantry unit. The less weapon strength is still very good for the price range, 130, definitely much better than something like Treekin, and also no forest penalty as they are Beastmen. That's another big benefit in that they can fight in those forest terrains. And yeah, myself up against the Skaven player on ladder here. I've got double Cygor again. Big fan of this against Skaven, kind of forces them into an uncomfortable position. We're just bombarding the Council Guard right now. He's got this Chieftain here. He's also got Gracier Lore of Ruin, Assassin as well, whole bunch of chaff. Doomwheel lurking in the woods along with some Gunner Runners with poison here. And some more Gutter Runners with poison over here. So decent stuff, a little bit split up at the moment, but gonna get some summons already. Storm Vermin summons even in the back line. Interesting. Sword and Shield. One thing I would say with that dreaded 13th spell, I believe that's what that was, is the explosion. You want to place that like on a unit because the explosion actually does damage. So like he could have potentially wrecked that unit of Ungor Raiders as the Cygor hits the tree right next to the camera. That was an interesting. But here come the spawn. We're gonna rush them in, and the main role of spawn a little bit different from the Beastmen, or for the Beastmen rather. Because they do a little bit less damage, you can use them in a damage dealer role, certainly, but the poison and the mass means they're an excellent tar pit unit. I mean, they are very squishy, but they're at least unbreakable, right? So they can hang around even with 1 or 2 models, then still kind of body block, apply that poison. You can see the Gracier here is having a really hard time doing anything, really, besides just being, you know, caught up in the spawn. The spawn not even necessarily attacking it, and finally it gets an attack order there. It does start to bully them a little bit with its animations, but all that time I was able to kind of pepper in with some of these raiders here who are not not getting over involved. And like this Doomwheel's going to charge in here, which is a bit of a mistake. It definitely wants to try and avoid the spawn if it can, which it's now going to do, because of course the spawn can just bog it down. I'm going to pull up a summon of spawn here, just horribly mistimed. It's not going to block that Doomwheel at all. The Doomwheel just kind of avoids the summon there. Manticore will drop on it to keep pressure up, and this summon is now going to get some shuriken to the face, but we're still throwing rocks. And yeah, like I said, they're more of body blockers and kind of tar pits for the Beastmen, especially given that monsters can sometimes be a little bit of an issue. Keeping them in place certainly helps you manage them, lets you do some damage with some other units. Like I could potentially bring my Cygor into melee as well against these Doomwheels in the later game if I have some spawn around. Right now, though, the full press is active. We got the double summons and another Storm Vermin summon there. That one, the explosion was actually placed, and the anti-large version now to help fight the spawn. It's a decent move, definitely a smart move on the Skaven player's part. Of course, spawn are unbreakable, so they'll just continue to fight back and kind of tar pit here. And yeah, the Manticore unfortunately also getting body blocked by the spawn, not actually attacking the Gracier, which is a side effect, but there it was able to get a little bit of an attack animation. Turns around, actually going to fight the Assassin, which is also just fine. But yeah, the spawn basically just kind of helping me hold down the Gracier and do a bunch of damage to him was the main thing I wanted to highlight here. They are going to start to wear off. The regular ones are getting killed by the Storm Vermin, who got a Skaven Brew, definitely the 70 melee attack. Strong play there, but their weapon strength, as low as it is, even still down a little bit from the poison, of course, which is just awesome. I'm a big fan of that on these Beastmen spawn. Ungor Raiders also pushing forward at this point, relatively healthy. Got a pretty decent spike on the balance power, semi-falsely inflated by Beastmen, but the 2 Hounds also just going to town over here, chasing this big range contingent. They were deployed kind of in the mid-game. I'd forgotten about them in the woods briefly, but they're going to come after here, go after these Gutter Runners, Night Runner Slingers, and so on. Just keep the route going. Ungor Spearman Herd also getting involved. The Doomwheel's back here, though, so it might get them terrified away, be able to bail out some of those units. Grace here is also kind of running for the hills, so a little bit of a chase in the mid-game as both players kind of realign. Yeah, the Skaven Assassin goes for the snipe against Morgar, but Morgar, even with his stats down, I mean, he's got regeneration. The Assassin doesn't have that much weapon strength, especially with the poison kind of in that fight. And Hero Spawn comes in here. Oh, yeah, just pitches. Just straight up just throws him like a baseball. Poor little Skaven bro. And yeah, if I can continue to just keep him stagger locked, that's great. Unfortunately, this one spawn here, 280 HP on him, gets one-shotted as soon as the assassin turns. But hey, it was enough to buy some time. Morgar gets a little charge himself with his 56 charge bonus. Now he's going to run away. And meanwhile, the Chieftain only 90 armor. I was going to say only 90 armor, though. He gets just gatted by mass Ungor Raiders. I mean, there's few hundred Ungor Raiders here, so yeah, we'll go ahead and kind of speed up through this mid-game as I throw rocks at the Gracier. There's no more spawn to highlight, so kind of the main, you know, point of this video is done, and it's already long enough with the two battles. But yeah, Morgar is going to just come forward from a tactics standpoint. I'll just cover a few things. Morgar is going to come forward, tank out the missiles, while the Cygors just throw rocks at the Skaven missile units. Just play forward with some pieces and occupy them. The Cygors both still have plenty of ammo, and I mean, why would I want to let them come up and shoot the Cygors, right? So we're just going to continue to return fire. The Doom Wheel comes back. It's going to try and run shop a little bit on my Ungor Raiders, but it's a little bit late in the game at this point. The Skaven player is going to throw in the towel there. So yeah, it was an interesting one. I think this is a pretty decent build overall for Skaven. The Chieftain's an interesting ad. I would almost say maybe you're better off to just go with another Assassin. The Chieftain does give you some benefits, like the Guardian, for example, if you can keep him by the Gracier, but I don't know. I'd have to look at his cost, really. Yeah, the kind of the skirmish missile play is decent against Beastmen, but you have to prepare for double Cygor, and my opponent was unfortunately not prepared, I don't think, for double Cygor. One of them, and this is kind of the tradition, right, is that the non-ROR Cygor actually gets much more value than ROR. ROR did have to fight in melee for a bit, to be fair, and got shot a little bit more. The two spawn I did bring didn't generate their value, and again, it's kind of differently to the Chaos version of Chaos Spawn, like the Warriors version of Chaos Spawn. These guys have a little bit of a different role, so that's okay. Also got the two on tap from Morgar that we don't see the value on. But the Ungor Spearman Herd just kind of here is more or less glorified meat shields. They're not true meat shields, but they're actually pretty decent for what they give you. The Ungor Raiders also kind of a damage dealer aspect. Did pay for themselves largely. Hounds also didn't have to face any wolf rats, which was nice. So yeah, just to kind of finish up on the spawn discussion here, we'll pull up both and compare to a couple of other infantry, monstrous infantry, that is. So for Beastmen and Warriors of Chaos, kind of the sub 1000 monstrous infantry category is an interesting one, because you've got quite a few in here that are decently cost effective, and I would say are good adds in a number of builds. We'll keep vampire counts up. Somebody also asked me about animated Hulk, so we'll pull them up also. And let's grab the Treekin for Wood Elves. So yeah, as comparison, one of the reasons I do this too is because not everyone has access to all the DLCs, so it's interesting for you to get a comparison for these units directly. And then for you guys, you've got, of course, Crypt Horrors. Animated Hulks are here also. Cheapest, but definitely the worst. And Treekin also. So kind of as a tank role, as a tank, Treekin are the best. The Tar Pit, you know, the Beastmen Chaos Spawn do offer some upside, and they do a little bit more damage. They are definitely squishier. There's no question about that. Low defense, low armor, no physical resistance, no weakness to fire, though. They are unbreakable, and yeah, they actually deal some damage. And the poison really makes them a little bit tankier than you might think, right? Because it does lower enemy weapon damage. So they won't be taking as much in melee, but, you know, incidental missile fire and other things definitely does more against them. And yeah, anti-large too, you know, kind of is a factor in that this only lowers weapon strength, doesn't affect anti-large at all, right? The Warriors Chaos Spawn are definitely the highest weapon damage of any in this category. Crypt Horrors also have poison attacks and regeneration, which is nice, but much lower weapon strength, and you know, are arguably just as squishy other than those traits. And they actually, because they're low leadership, can be disintegrated not super easily, but you can lose them. And they just take a lot of damage from stuff. Still a great tar pit unit, though, for the vampire counts, given their cheap price. And yeah, only 800 points for these guys. The poison's also great. Gonna cover them eventually pretty soon. Animated Hulks talked about in the past. The weapon strength is awesome on these guys. 110 weapon strength is, I mean, on par with the Spawn, except that, you know, they've got good armor piercing. 77 AP is best, you know, kind of any of these, I want to say. Yeah, even more. So they have more armor piercing damage than Cryptors have total weapon damage, right? But unfortunately, they're just as squishy in terms of their stats and no regeneration, so they just die. Also, not nearly as much passive healing from various other sources as on counts. So for Coast, Animated Hulk's a bit of a meme pick. You can maybe make them work sometimes, especially if you pair them with Sirens. Well, they take less hits, but I mean, they're the worst. I mean, they're the cheapest, but that doesn't necessarily make them the best. In a lot of cases, being cheap just in and of itself is good, but those guys are not really worth it at 750. Shrieking, again, I'm a big fan of these guys now. The Vanguard's awesome. They're also very tanky. Definitely the tankiest out of any of these. They're great in that role. So that kind of summarizes my thoughts about these cheaper Monstrous infantry. I am missing a few, like trolls, you know, the basic trolls for the two factions, and river trolls and so on. We'll cover them another time. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.